Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Picture this. We've got your son, Voss. Give us $1 million or he dies. Those words would make anyone's blood run cold. Your heart would be hammering, your palms sweating, your mind spinning out of control trying to figure out what to do next. But here's the twist. The man hearing this threat wasn't panicking at all. His name was Chris Voss, and for 15 years, he'd been the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator. He'd stared down terrorists, talked to bank robbers mid-heist, and negotiated with people who genuinely believed they were messiahs. Life-or-death conversations? That was just Tuesday for him. Except this time, something was different. The voice on the other end wasn't a hardened criminal, it was a Harvard Law School professor. Voss wasn't dodging bullets in some war-torn country. He was sitting in a classroom at Harvard, taking an executive negotiation course to see what the academic elite could teach an FBI veteran. The kidnapping was a surprise role play, a curveball thrown by some of the sharpest negotiation theorists in the world. They wanted to test what the FBI's top negotiator was really made of. The professor playing the kidnapper was probably expecting Voss to argue, to reason, maybe even to beg a little. He got none of that. Voss took a slow, deliberate breath. He let the tension settle like dust. Then, with a tone so calm it was almost curious, he looked the professor in the eye and asked one simple question. How am I supposed to do that? The professor froze. Voss remembers his expression perfectly, like a cat that's been chasing a mouse, only to have the mouse suddenly turn around and start chasing back. In an instant, the entire conversation had shifted. It was no longer about whether Voss would pay the ransom. Now it was about how the kidnapper was going to help Voss solve his logistical nightmare. With one beautifully crafted question, Voss had seized control of the negotiation by making the other guy think he was in charge. That single moment captures everything we're about to explore in Never Split the Difference. This isn't your typical business book filled with corporate jargon and pie charts. This is a field manual for human interaction, written by someone who learned his lessons when getting it wrong meant people died. What Voss discovered in those pressure cooker situations is that successful negotiation isn't about being the loudest person in the room or having the best logical argument. It's about understanding the messy, complicated, beautiful chaos of human psychology. Today, we're diving into the secrets Voss learned when the stakes couldn't get any higher. This isn't about becoming manipulative or turning into some heartless dealmaker. It's about learning to listen in ways you never imagined, to understand what people really want even when they don't know themselves. By the time we're done, you'll have tools that go way beyond getting a better price on a car or negotiating a higher salary. You're about to fundamentally change how you communicate with everyone, your parents, your boss, your friends, even that difficult person you've been avoiding. You're about to learn how to negotiate like your life depends on it. For decades, the negotiation world had one king, and that king lived at Harvard University. The reigning philosophy, made famous by the book Getting to Yes, said that negotiation was basically a rational puzzle to solve. The idea was simple. Separate emotions from the problem, focus on interests rather than positions, and find a logical win-win solution. It was elegant, sophisticated, and built on one massive assumption that people are rational. But Chris Voss and his FBI colleagues knew better. They weren't negotiating with calm executives in air-conditioned boardrooms. They were dealing with desperate, terrified, sometimes unhinged people in the middle of crises. They tried the Harvard approach, and it kept falling flat. As Voss puts it, have you ever tried to find a mutually beneficial win-win solution with a guy who thinks he's the messiah? Yeah, good luck with that. The FBI had to innovate, and fast. they realize something crucial. In the real world, we're not logical creatures calmly weighing options. We're emotional, impulsive, sometimes irrational animals making decisions with our guts. The emotional, instinctive part of our brain, what psychologists call System 1 thinking, is way more powerful than the slow, logical part, System 2. Our feelings, our snap judgments, our gut reactions, those are actually running the show most of the time. As it turns out, feeling is a form of thinking. This was a total game changer. If you could influence someone's emotional state, you could gently guide their logical mind to follow. Negotiation wasn't a chess match of logic. It was a psychological investigation, a process of discovery. The goal wasn't to crush your opponent, but to understand them so deeply that you could help them find your solution and make them think it was their brilliant idea all along. This new approach, forged in crisis situations, is what Voss calls tactical empathy. And before you roll your eyes, this isn't about being nice or agreeing with everyone. Empathy isn't sympathy. It's about recognizing and actually saying out loud what the other person is thinking and feeling. It's listening as a martial art, a way to access someone else's mind. But how do you actually do this? How do you silence that voice in your head that's busy rehearsing your next comeback and truly hear the person across from you? Voss says it starts with a few simple but incredibly powerful techniques. The first one is called mirroring. It's almost embarrassingly simple. You just repeat the last 1 to 3 important words the other person said. You're not mimicking their accent or mocking their tone. Just the words. Imagine you're buying a car, and the salesperson says, "This is the best price you're going to find." Instead of arguing or launching into your research about competitor pricing, you just look at them thoughtfully and say, "The best price I'm going to find?" This simple echo does something almost magical. It's based on a neural behavior called isopraxism, which is just a fancy way of saying we unconsciously copy people we feel comfortable with. By repeating their words, you're sending a signal to their unconscious mind. Hey, we're on the same team here. You can trust me. Almost every time, they'll elaborate, rephrase what they said, and give you more information. It keeps them talking, buys you time to think, and makes them feel genuinely heard. A psychologist once ran an experiment with waiters. One group used positive reinforcement, saying things like, "Great choice," or "Coming right up." The other group simply mirrored customers' orders back to them. The results were wild. The waiters who mirrored received tips that were 70% higher on average. That's the power of this ridiculously simple technique. The second tool is your voice. Voss says negotiators have 3 tones available, but you should really only use 2. First is the positive/playful voice. This should be your default setting. It's easygoing, friendly, the voice of someone who's enjoyable to be around. Here's the secret: smile while you talk. Even on the phone, people can hear a smile in your voice, and it makes them more collaborative and mentally flexible. The second tone, used more sparingly, is what Voss calls the late-night FM DJ voice. You know exactly what this sounds like. Deep, soft, slow, reassuring. When you speak with a downward inflection, you're broadcasting calm and control. It's not a question, it's a statement. It says, everything's under control here. Voss used this brilliantly during a bank robbery in Brooklyn. It was his first major hostage situation. After 5 hours of going nowhere, Voss took over the phone. The robber, Chris Voss, immediately noticed the change. "Hey, what happened to Joe?" Watts demanded. Instead of explaining or getting defensive, Voss dropped into that DJ voice, deep, calm, with a downward inflection. "Joe's gone," he said. "This is Chris. You're talking to me now." It was a simple statement, but the tone conveyed complete control. It rattled Watts and shifted the entire dynamic of the standoff, which eventually ended with all the hostages released safely. You can be incredibly direct, Voss explains, as long as your tone creates safety. I'm okay, you're okay, let's figure this out together. The one voice to almost always avoid is the direct, assertive tone. It signals dominance and control, and it triggers pushback almost every time. So with mirroring and the right voice tone, you've created space for real conversation. You've made the other person feel safe and heard. Now you can move to the next level of tactical empathy, labeling. Labeling is simply naming the emotion you're seeing in the other person. You're not agreeing with it or validating whether it's reasonable. You're just acknowledging it exists. A label almost always starts the same way. It seems like. It sounds like. It looks like. Notice what you're not saying, I think, or I'm hearing. The word I makes people defensive, but phrasing it as a neutral observation makes them feel understood and encourages them to open up more. This technique is incredibly effective for diffusing negative emotions. In one brain imaging study, researchers showed people pictures of angry faces, and the fear center of their brain, the amygdala, lit up like a Christmas tree. But when they asked people to simply label the emotion they were seeing, the brain activity shifted to the rational thinking parts of the brain. In other words, putting a word to a fear literally disrupts its raw power over us. Voss saw this firsthand during a tense standoff in Harlem. 3 armed fugitives were holed up in an apartment, refusing to communicate. For 6 straight hours, Voss and his team spoke through the door, not with demands, but with labels. "It looks like you don't want to come out," they'd say in that calm DJ voice. "It seems like you're worried that if you open the door, we'll come in with guns blazing. It looks like you don't want to go back to jail." For hours there was only silence. But then the door slowly opened, and all 3 men surrendered peacefully. When asked why they finally gave up, they all said the same thing: "You calmed us down." By labeling their fears, Voss had made them understood, and that feeling of being understood made it safe for them to surrender. An even more powerful version of this is what Voss calls an accusation audit. This is where you proactively label every terrible thing your counterpart could possibly say about you before they can say it. Let's say you have to deliver bad news to a client. You could start by saying you're going to think we're completely incompetent. You're probably going to feel like we've been dishonest and that we've let you down. You're probably going to think we're not worth the money you're paying us. This sounds terrifying, right? Like you're writing your own execution order. But what it actually does is take all the sting out of those accusations. By voicing them yourself, you show you're aware of their perspective, and you completely preempt their attack. It disarms them and opens them up to actually solving the problem. These tools, mirroring, voice tone, and labeling, are all designed to lead to one transformative moment in any negotiation. And here's the twist: it's not the moment they say yes. In fact, Voss warns us to be deeply suspicious of the word yes. Think about it. We've all been cornered by a pushy salesperson or telemarketer who funnels us down a path of yes questions. Do you like saving money? Yes. Do you want better service? Yes. Each yes feels like a trap closing around you. Voss says there are 3 kinds of yes: the counterfeit yes, the confirmation yes, and the commitment yes. Most of the time when someone's pressuring you, the yes you give is counterfeit. It's just an escape hatch to make them go away. The words you really want to hear are far more powerful. They are, "That's right." "That's right" is the breakthrough moment. It's when you've convinced someone that you truly understand them and their situation. It's an epiphany for them, a moment where they feel a genuine bond of trust. When they say, "That's right," they're embracing what you've said as their own truth. The best way to trigger a "that's right" is with a summary. A good summary combines labeling their emotions and paraphrasing what they've told you. You're essentially playing back their entire worldview so completely and accurately that the only possible response is, "That's right." Voss experienced the incredible power of this during the kidnapping of an American missionary in the Philippines named Jeffrey Schilling. The kidnapper, a brutal terrorist leader named Abu Sabaya, was demanding $10 million in ransom, which he framed as war damages for 500 years of oppression against his people. For months, the negotiation was completely stuck. No amount of logic could budge Sabaya from this narrative. Finally, Voss and his team tried for a "that's right" moment. He coached his Filipino counterpart, Benji, to stop arguing and just listen. Benji spent the next call doing nothing but summarizing Sabaya's entire worldview back to him. The history, the injustices, the anger, all of it. When he finished, Sabaya was silent for a full minute. Then he spoke. "That's right," he said. Everything changed in that moment. From that point forward, the demand for war damages simply evaporated. Sabaya never asked for another dime. The breakthrough didn't come from defeating him, it came from understanding him. This brings us to another of Voss's counterintuitive rules. Beware yes, master no. We've been trained to fear the word no. It feels like rejection, failure, the conversation dying. But Voss argues that no is actually pure gold. No isn't the end of the negotiation. It's the beginning of the real conversation. When someone says no, they feel safe, they feel in control. They've protected themselves and maintained their autonomy. And once a person feels safe and in control, they become much more open to actually listening to what you have to say. An early yes is often a trap. A no is the start of something real. So how do you get someone to say no? You can ask a question that invites it. Instead of asking a potential client, "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" you ask, "Is now a bad time to talk?" A no to that question gives you their full attention. You can even intentionally mislabel something to force a no. If you know a client wants to keep their current supplier, you might say, "So it seems like you're really eager to leave your current supplier." This forces them to correct you. "No, that's not it at all. Here's what's actually going on." One of the most powerful uses of no is a simple, one-sentence email that Voss guarantees will never be ignored. When a potential partner or client goes dark and stops responding, you send them this. "Have you given up on this project?" This question plays on our deep hatred of loss. People hate losing things, and they hate being abandoned. The implied threat that you're ready to walk away forces them to respond, usually with something like, "No, of course not. We've just been swamped." It reignites the conversation instantly. Now, once you've created this environment of safety and trust, you can start to gently bend your counterpart's reality. This isn't about deception. It's about understanding and using the irrational biases that govern all our decisions. The first of these is our relationship with fairness. The word fair is one of the most emotionally charged words in any negotiation. When someone says, "We just want what's fair," it's often a defensive move designed to make you feel like you're being unreasonable and push you into making a bad concession. If someone hits you with this, Voss says to pause and respond, "I'm sorry. Let's go back to where I started treating you unfairly and we'll fix it." This calmly calls their bluff and reframes the conversation. The best way to use the F word is proactively. Early in a negotiation, you can say, "I want you to feel like you're being treated fairly at all times. So please stop me at any point if you feel I'm being unfair, and we'll address it." This positions you as an honest, empathetic dealer and builds trust from the start. The next principle is loss aversion. As psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky discovered, people will take far greater risks to avoid a loss than to achieve an equivalent gain. Losing something stings at least twice as much as gaining something feels good. This means that in a negotiation, it's not enough to show your counterpart what they'll gain by agreeing with you. To have real leverage, you need to persuade them that they have something concrete to lose if the deal falls through. You can amplify this by anchoring their emotions. Before you make an offer, you can use an accusation audit to anchor their emotions in a negative space. Voss tells a story about needing to tell his contractors he could only pay them $500 a day instead of the agreed-upon $2,000. Instead of just delivering the bad news, he started the call by saying, quote, "I have a terrible proposition for you. By the time we get off the phone, you're going to think I'm the worst businessman you've ever dealt with." He listed all the negative things they might be thinking. Then he framed the offer with loss aversion. "Still, I wanted to bring this to you before I took it to someone else." Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about a cut from $2,000 to $500. It was about not losing a $500 a day gig to another contractor. Every single one of them took the deal. This leads us to the pinnacle of Voss's techniques, the tool that brings everything together, the calibrated question. These are open-ended questions carefully designed to remove aggression and give your counterpart the illusion of control, while you're actually the one framing the conversation. Calibrated questions almost always start with how or what. They avoid closed-ended words, like is or does, that can be answered with a simple yes or no. The word why is almost always accusatory and should be avoided unless used very strategically. The most powerful calibrated question, the one Voss used at Harvard, is some version of "How am I supposed to do that?" Delivered with a genuinely curious, deferential tone, it's not an accusation. It's a request for help. It invites the other side to see your problem and participate in solving it. It's a graceful, respectful way to say no, while nudging them toward your solution. Another powerful set of calibrated questions revolves around implementation. Remember, Voss says yes is nothing without how. An agreement is worthless if it can't actually be carried out. So you need to ask questions like, how will we know we're on track? How will we address things if we find we're off track? By getting them to articulate the how in their own words, you make them feel like the solution is their idea, which makes them far more likely to actually follow through. Voss saw the incredible power of this in another kidnapping case in Ecuador. The family, coached by the FBI, did nothing but ask the kidnappers how questions. How do we know he's alive? How are we supposed to raise that much money? The questions completely stalled the kidnappers. The negotiator had to keep going back to his team in the jungle to figure out how to answer, causing so much confusion and delay that the hostage, Jose, eventually found an opportunity to escape. The how questions didn't just say no, they forced the entire kidnapping operation to work in service of the family's goal. This also highlights another crucial point. You're rarely negotiating with just one person. There's always a team on the other side, even if they're not at the table. If you don't influence those behind-the-scenes players, your deal can fall apart during implementation. Calibrated questions like, how does this affect the rest of your team, are essential for uncovering and influencing those hidden dynamics. Now, what about the actual bargaining, the haggling over numbers? Voss offers a system he learned from a CIA veteran named Mike Ackerman. It's a simple four-step process designed to get you the best price. First, set your target price. This is your goal. Second, make your first offer at 65% of your target price. This sets an extreme anchor that shocks your counterpart and reframes their expectations. Third, plan 3 raises in decreasing increments. Your next offers will be at 85%, 95%, and finally 100% of your target. The decreasing size of the raises makes your counterpart feel like they're squeezing every last drop out of you. Fourth, end on a precise non-round number. An offer of $37,893 feels like it came from careful calculation, whereas $38,000 feels like a placeholder you pulled out of thin air. At the very end, throw in a non-monetary item they probably don't want, to signal you're truly at your limit. Voss used this exact system to buy his beloved red Toyota 4Runner. The sticker price was $36,000. He wanted to pay $30,000. He started his offer there, but he framed it using empathetic language. "I'm so sorry, this is really embarrassing, I just can't pay any more." Each time the salesman came back with a lower price, Voss would praise the offer. "Wow, that's very generous of you." And then gently say, "No, again. I'm sorry, I just can't do that." He let the silence hang in the air. Eventually, the salesman, completely thrown off by this gentle but firm approach, came all the way down to $30,000. All of these tools are designed to help you find what Voss calls black swans. These are the small, hidden, unexpected pieces of information that, if uncovered, can completely transform the negotiation. They're the unknown unknowns. Finding black swans requires a mindset shift. It means listening intently not just to what's being said, but to what's not being said. It means paying attention to the small pauses, the subtle shifts in tone, the unguarded moments before a meeting starts or after it ends. Leverage in a negotiation isn't about bullying. It's about understanding. Voss identifies 3 types of leverage. Positive leverage is your ability to give someone what they want. Negative leverage is your ability to inflict pain, often through loss aversion. And normative leverage is using your counterpart's own norms, standards, and worldview to frame your position. Voss gives a powerful example from a standoff with a North Carolina farmer named Dwight Watson, who drove his tractor into a pond in Washington, D.C. and threatened to blow it up. The negotiation was tense, but the team listened closely. They learned he was a devout Christian and an Army veteran with a strong code of honor. One of the agents realized that the next morning would be the dawn of the 3rd day, the day Christians believe Jesus rose from the tomb. She suggested they frame his surrender in those terms. If Christ could come out on the 3rd day, why not him? They offered him this idea. There was a long silence. Then Watson said, "I'll come out." By understanding and respecting his worldview, they gave him an honorable way out that fit his own narrative. This is the ultimate lesson of never split the difference. It's not about winning in a way that crushes your opponent. It's about recognizing that the person across the table isn't the problem. The unsolved issue is. The person you're negotiating with is your partner in finding a solution. Your job is to lead them there with empathy, deep listening, and genuine curiosity about their world. You have to get over your fear of conflict. Honest, clear conflict isn't a battle. It's a path to creativity and resolution. By using these tools, you're not just helping yourself. You're pushing your counterpart to be more creative, to articulate what they truly want, and to become a collaborator in finding a beautiful solution. As we step back and look at the landscape of ideas Chris Voss has laid out for us, what's truly remarkable is how simple, yet profound, his central message is. For all the dramatic stories of FBI standoffs and international kidnappings, the core of this book isn't about outsmarting terrorists. It's about connecting with human beings. The greatest lesson here, the one I hope stays with you long after you've finished listening, is that the most powerful negotiating tool we have is our ability to listen. Not just to wait politely for our turn to talk, but to listen with a genuine desire to understand the world from another person's point of view. For anyone standing on the edge of adult life, this is an incredibly empowering idea. So much of what we're taught, either directly or indirectly, is that to get what we want, we need to be louder, more aggressive, more forceful in our arguments. Voss completely flips this on its head. He shows us that real strength lies not in assertion, but in curiosity. Real power lies not in controlling others, but in giving them the feeling of control. This philosophy extends far beyond the boardroom or the car dealership. Think about the conversations you have every day. An argument with your parents about curfew, a disagreement with a friend, a difficult project with a colleague. In every one of those interactions, there's an underground world of unspoken fears, needs, and desires. The person you're talking to isn't being crazy or irrational. They're simply acting on information you don't have, constrained by pressures you can't see, or driven by interests you haven't yet discovered. Your job, as an effective communicator, is to become an explorer of that hidden world. So how can you start applying these ideas today? It doesn't have to be complicated. Start with just one technique. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, big or small, try to get a "that's right" from the other person. Don't argue. Don't defend. Just listen to their perspective and summarize it back to them so accurately that they have no choice but to say, "That's right." Watch what happens to the energy of the conversation when you do. Or try a calibrated question. The next time you're asked to do something you're unsure about, instead of saying no or "I can't," try a gentle "How am I supposed to do that?" Frame it as a genuine request for help and see how it transforms a potential conflict into a collaborative problem-solving session. This approach requires patience. It requires you to bite your tongue when your first instinct is to react. It requires you to put your ego aside and make the conversation about the other person. But the rewards are immense. Because what you're really learning isn't just a set of tactics. You're learning the art of human connection. You're learning that by making other people feel understood, you open the door to influence and collaboration in a way that aggression never can. That was a summary of Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. We've explored some of the most powerful ideas from the book today. But I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It can show you the landmarks and give you a sense of the terrain, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the paths, breathing the air, and discovering the hidden treasures for yourself. The real magic of this book happens when you read it. It's in the quiet moments when a particular story or a simple phrase resonates with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see every conversation and every relationship in your life. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to click that subscribe button. We journey through a new, life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf in every episode, and by subscribing, you ensure you won't miss out on the next big idea. Let's